Hey makeup friends, we have made it through yet another month, so that can only mean it is time for favorites and fails. Let's do this. As always, I want to welcome you back to my channel, or if you are new here, then hello and welcome. My name is Kara, and on my channel we like to mix beauty, brains, and the occasional F-bomb. The makeup that I'm wearing today on my eyes is the BFF palette from Viseart Cosmetics, and on my lips is the matte liquid lipstick from TLB in the shade Boss Babe. Okay. I'm not going to mince words. We all know the drill. Favorites, fails, it's right there in the title. What I'm going to do is start with the two fail products, and then I have 5 or 6 favorites. So in absolutely no particular order, let's start off with this guy. This one is from Revlon. It's the Color Stay Light Cover Foundation. I have it in the shade Creme Brulee number 210, and I don't like it. I did a whole review video dedicated to this foundation, and it wasn't great. Let's start from the top. Okay, so the packaging I actually really do like. The shade, I don't know what kind of weak ass creme brulee over at Revlon they're eating, but this is like straight up white. Basically, if you watch the review video that I did on it, I look appallingly ill applying this to my face. I did manage to pull it off in the end by adding like a tinted powder on top, but that is not creme brulee. And it's certainly nowhere near my shade. So I had a bit of an issue with the shade range to begin with. It was just really difficult to find what was going to match me. And then it just did not look good on my skin, nor did it wear well. It's a product that just sort of sat on top of my skin. It created a lot of texture. It created the appearance of pores that I don't normally deal with. And like I said, it just didn't wear very well throughout the day. It's not a particularly sticky foundation. It's certainly not heavy or thick or anything of that sort, but I just really didn't like the way it felt on my skin, and I did not like the way it looked. So it's kind of lived in my drawer without me reaching for it since I did that wear test. I just don't foresee myself getting any use out of this because I have so many other better options, and this is just one that I would say, give it a pass. Now, not to pick on the drugstore, but I've got another fail from them. This one's not quite as bad as that foundation was, but this is the Maybelline Lash Sensational Sky High Mascara, and I just don't think it's fantastic. I bought it because I saw some articles popping up saying like how great it is and this and that, and it's probably the best one over at the drugstore, and I don't agree. I just find that even though it claims not to be clumping, it actually is clumping. It says that it's a washable mascara, which always makes me kind of do one of those head tilt things where I'm like, that's a weird flex, but okay. I don't know what they mean by that, because let me tell you, when I wash this off, it doesn't claim to be a tubing mascara, and yet it leaves those little like weird looking black flecks all over my face that tubing mascaras do leave. So perhaps it is a tubing mascara and they just chose to promote the fact that it's washable over the fact that it's tubing, which seems like a really odd choice. Genuinely, I don't know what's going on in the marketing department over at Maybelline, but I am just not a fan of it. It's not terrible. It's not bad, but nor is it fantastic. And so the articles that I've seen, and granted, there's not a lot, and I really don't do a deep dive on mascaras before I go and buy them, but just on my Google timeline when I open it up on my phone, I remember seeing one and it was like game changer at the drugstore or some sort of claim like that, and I'm just not seeing it. I think there are better options at the drugstore. I think there are better options from Maybelline. The original Lash Sensational, I think, outperforms this one. It just didn't do much. Maybe my expectations were too high. That could be it, but I didn't find that it added a ton of length, a ton of volume. It certainly didn't not clump, which it claimed not to do. Grammar, go with me. I don't know. I just didn't love it. So I haven't been reaching for it a lot. It's just, I will probably eventually use it, but I don't really want to. But now on to the items that made my little heart happy. So I have another foundation to talk about, and this one is from Urban Decay. It has some ridiculous name, but all you really need to know is Hydromaniac. I have it in the shade 30 Light. I did a dedicated review on this. I really like this foundation. It does offer light to medium coverage. It looks like actual skin. It just has this really natural appearance on the face. It evens everything out without looking like a mask. It is really breathable and lightweight. It wears really nicely throughout the day. It doesn't have that like heavy feeling on your skin at all. And I just really, really like how it feels, how it wears, how it looks. That's all I really need a foundation to do, and yet some of them cannot achieve any of those things. This one, however, was a bit of a sleeper for me. I haven't really heard anybody else talking about it, but I really, really like it. So if you're in the market for a lighter coverage foundation, this is one you might want to check out because I think it's really fantastic. I really like this one. Now, to go along with the foundation, there is also a concealer that I have fallen in love with this month, and that would be this guy here from The Ordinary. This cost me less than $6, and let me tell you, it's fantastic. It's just called Concealer, High Coverage Formula, and I have it in the shade 1.2 YG. And it actually says right on there, light yellow undertones with gold highlights. It is so much more intuitive than frickin' creme brulee. I don't know what dessert I resemble, but I do know that I have yellowy golden undertones and that I have a light complexion. So this just makes it so much easier than comparing myself to a dessert item. Because again, I don't know what dessert I am. But aside from just the ease of their naming system, I also like the packaging on this one. It's just very functional and serviceable, no bells or whistles, and here comes my daughter home from school.
Hi!
I'm just doing my favorites. Oh, look at your hair. That's my favorite. You took your braids out. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
It looks beautiful,
Is that
honey.
okay?
Of course it's okay. Who is at our door? That's not acceptable. It's probably a delivery of some sort.
Probably.
See how neither one of us rushes to go answer the door, though? I've trained her well. I'm like, you ring my door and you're not invited? I'm not answering it. All right, back to the product. Now, aside from it just having very functional packaging and all of that kind of thing, the product itself is fantastic as well. I find that it blends out really nicely. It does cake just a tiny bit in the fine lines, but frankly, so does every other concealer that I have. But this one packs a punch in terms of the coverage. When they say high coverage formula, they are not lying about that. I do have very dark under eye circles, and this provides about as much coverage as I have from any other concealer that is in my collection. So I really enjoy that. And for the price point, it just blows my mind how much coverage is in this product. It lasts well throughout the day. It doesn't dry out my under eyes or do anything that I really wouldn't want happening under there. I really enjoy this one, and you cannot beat the price point. So this is definitely one that I highly recommend. All right, before we move into eyeshadow palettes, I do have one lip product to talk about, and that is this guy here. Now, this is an expensive little beastie. It is from Lisa Eldridge, but sometimes it's worth the investment. So in particular, this is the shade Velvet Morning, and it is a beautiful fiery orange red shade. It is so gorgeous. I love these kind of tones, but it's more so about the actual finish of this lipstick. And I do have it in other shades, but I wanted to highlight this shade because it's so bloody gorgeous. But this formula, the Velvet Matte formula that she has, is incredibly long wearing on the lips. And that is why when Barry was asking me what it was that I wanted for Valentine's Day, I said the trio of these lipsticks. So I got 3 different red shades. I got this one here, a nice warm orangey red. I got a true blue-based red as well as a deeper red. I don't have any red bullet lipsticks because I find that they're such a huge liability. They tend to feather around or transfer. They just end up on my teeth. They don't wear nicely. These ones lock into place, and they are on like Donkey Kong. I can apply this at like 8 o'clock in the morning and I don't have to touch it up again until after I've eaten my lunch around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And yet, despite that longevity, it's also very comfortable. So this isn't one of those matte lipsticks that gets really dried out or give you like those like really gross butthole kind of lips going on. You know what I'm talking about? Not a cute look. This just remains looking as good as it did when you first applied it. It doesn't feather, it doesn't bleed around on the outside of the lips. It's just a fantastic formula and it remains comfortable throughout the duration that you're wearing it. So for that, I think it's worth the investment. I know that they are very pricey, but every now and then items come along that justify their price tag, and this is one of them. All right, so to round out my favorites, I have 3 eyeshadow palettes to talk about. So again, no particular order. First up is this one here from Viseart. This is the Violette palette. And she's so pretty. She's so pretty. And I think they really nailed the balance between fun, bright purples and more wearable, neutral kind of options. So all of these shades in here, the undertone is perfect for the balance of the palette. I think it's just a really well thought out curation of sets, and it does include some really fun, punchy, vibrant kind of shades, which makes my heart happy. In particular, these 2 right here. The shimmers in here do not disappoint. That has been a bone of contention that I've had with some other Viseart palettes in the past. Their shimmers have been a little lackluster. Not the case with this one, and I just think that they have nailed the entire color story. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Now, when I did my review of this palette, I had lent out 2 of my other Viseart palettes to my friend Erin. So in particular, the Paris palette and the Liaison palette. I've obviously since got them back from her. So I wasn't able to do a comparison of these at that time, but I'm going to sneak it in here just in case anybody is curious about the different palettes and thinking about picking up one of them. So again, we've got the Violette over here, and this is the Paris one. And frankly, I really don't see an awful lot of overlap between the 2. I definitely like the size of this one better. I think it's a lot easier to get your brush into. This one, while pretty, definitely wouldn't say that it's a purple palette. So I think that these 2 kind of stand alone on their own, and they bring something unique to the table, one from the other. So if you had one, it wouldn't necessarily exclude purchasing the other. However, the same cannot be said for the Liaison palette. I was actually kind of shocked at just how similar these 2 palettes are. So let's take a look there. I'm not going to point out every single individual shade, but with the exception of that really deep matte shade over here, pretty much every other shade that's in this palette is replicated over here. And that kind of pisses me off, to be honest, because they're not cheap palettes. So while there are some differences, there's not a lot of differences. There are maybe 4 shades in here that are different from this, but even at that, it's sort of like a loose interpretation of the word different. It's very, very similar. So I would say that if you have the Liaison palette, give this one a pass. If you're really looking for like that vibrant purple, or like the purple with a little bit of a duochromatic shift, you can find a single shadow from any indie brand and just pay like $6 to $8 for it. Don't spend 60 bucks Canadian on an entire palette if you're just missing 1 or 2 shades from here. So for my own part, what I anticipate doing is giving this one back to my friend Erin for her to keep, because I really don't feel like I need both of them. So another palette that I've been reaching for over and over again is the collaboration between Kaleidos Makeup and Angelica Nyqvist. This is the Club Nebula palette. And aside from the artwork and just how stunningly beautiful this palette is to look at, what I really appreciate about it is just how versatile the color story is. You have got gorgeous shades in here. There's a beautiful mix of mattes and shimmers. There's some really vibrant, fun colors, but there's also enough neutral options in there that I can make office appropriate looks out of it without any problem. And yet the neutrals that are in here still play really nicely with those bright colors, and they're not your mother's neutrals. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just brown. They're not just like a row of beige. There's like this nice taupey kind of shade here that has a bit of a purple undertone. And I find that this plays really nicely with these purple tones, but also can be used with the reds over here. And then I also find that the shimmers in here can be used to create entirely different looks when layering them on top of the mattes. For example, the other day, I can't remember which video it was. I think it was my new releases, the most new release video that I did. I had this red matte shade over the inner half of my lid, and then I had topped it with Celestial, and it made it look pink. So there's just so much versatility in this palette, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's impeccably done, and I just keep finding new combinations to play around with. And so this is one of those like palettes that just keeps on giving, and I absolutely love it. Now I have one more palette to talk about, and what would a favorites video be without a BH Cosmetics palette thrown in the mix? And that one is going to be the Hangin in Hawaii palette. Now this is a very neutral palette, and dare I say, it might actually look a little bit boring, but it's beautiful. There is such a nice mix of tones in here, from pinks to corals to sort of warm yellowy browns. Again, you've got that really nice mix of mattes and shimmers, and then one more like metallic kind of foiled shadow up here as well, which looks beautiful all over the lid. I love the performance of their mattes. The shimmers last all day with vibrant intensity. I really, really like this palette. For being as neutral as it is, there's just enough like fun elements with the pinks and the corals that it's just, again, not your mother's neutrals. I don't know that that's a saying, but I'm really gonna lean into it for this video. Sorry. But I really enjoy using this. I find, again, the undertones of all of these shadows really play nicely with each other, so I don't have to spend a ton of time trying to figure out what I'm going to pair with each other in order to make a cohesive eye look. I really enjoy this one. They constantly have sales going on. I picked this one up, I think, for $10, down from its original price point of $17 or $18. So I mean, even at full price, you're not going to be breaking the bank for these palettes, but I think that these are the kind of palettes that I can get a ton of use out of. And in fact, I have got a lot of use out of this one, considering I've only had it for about a month, but it's one that lives on the top of my desk. I don't even bother putting it back into my shelf because I just keep reaching for it. Okay, so with that, those are the favorites and fails for this month. I'm sure I could find more products that I've been really enjoying, but these are the ones that immediately came top of mind. So when I'm thinking favorite, that's kind of the benchmark for me. If they immediately pop into my mind, then I know I've been using them over and over again and really enjoying the experience. So I don't want to force the issue in order to come up with some arbitrary number of favorites. It is what it is. Those are the ones for this month. So with all of that said, I'm going to wrap this video up here, but I would love to hear from you down below. What are some of the items that you have been loving this month? Or conversely, have there been any items that you've tried that were just a big old flop for you? I always like to hear that as well. Not that you're not enjoying your makeup, but it helps me to avoid buying the same thing. So we're all here to help each other. All right, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.